Warning, this podcast contains themes of extreme violence and murder. Subject matter may be offensive to some listeners. Discretion advised.
Welcome to another episode of Evil Transgression, your homicide headquarters here in podcasting. I'm Josh.
Yeah.
And with me, as always, the faithful and dependable Rex.
Hey, what's up?
Dustin is still dealing with some things, so we'll let him somewhat slide.
Right, yeah. This time.
Not really. We're probably going to toilet paper his house after this episode.
Yeah, we should.
It's been a crazy couple of weeks for all of us.
Yep.
I was in a pretty good accident.
Yeah, you were.
Just going to work. You know, minding my business.
Yep. Listening to some Britney Spears.
I might have been. You know, doing my thing.
Yeah, toxic, yeah.
I'm 2 blocks from the parking lot of my work. It's a straight shot. Straight shot from where I'm at. I can see my parking lot. Lady runs a stop sign. Pow. Takes off the front of my car. Totaled it, yeah. I don't know how fast she was going. She was definitely moving. I don't even remember seeing headlights.
Wow.
So I don't know if she had her lights on. But the damage to her car was minimal. Unbelievably. I mean, you've seen my car.
Yeah, yours was tore up.
And all I remember seeing is like a streak out of the corner of my eye. And it was enough time for me to brace and hit my brakes. And I wasn't even going fast enough to leave a skid mark or anything.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, there's no tire tracks. And I ended up stopping in the intersection. Like, you know, it wasn't like I went past the intersection or, you know, after I hit her or she hit me or whatever you want to call it. She goes past me. Airbag goes off, so I'm not seeing what's happening really. Yeah. And I finally get my bearings and shut my car off and open my door, because if you've ever had an airbag go off in your face, it sucks.
Oh yeah.
The smoke from it going off or whatever, the powder in there is nasty.
That's what I've heard.
So I opened the door. You know, when I realized I'm not dead,
which was a plus,
I opened my door and I hear screaming like, "Oh my God, help her. She's having a seizure."
What?
Yeah. And I look over and...
So nobody's even running to you. They're just running to her?
Right. This is 6:45 in the morning. Neighbors coming out of their houses because they heard it. This lady opens her door and rolls out onto the ground and starts shaking like she's having a seizure. She may have been, that's debatable.
Right.
She may have been having this so-called seizure, but I've never seen anybody having a seizure with the motor skills to open their door and roll out. But it is what it is. Yeah, everybody runs to her. Nobody asked me if I'm all right. I get out and lean over because I was like, you know, my back had been bothering me anyways.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, that's going to hurt, you know? Everybody goes to her like, oh my God. No one checked on me until the cops showed up.
Wow.
I take that back. They had a squad show up for her, which she was fine. They took her vitals or whatever and they asked her if she wanted to go get checked out at the hospital. And she said no. Which, again, if you've had a seizure.
Yeah. You would want checked out.
Yeah. So one of the paramedics came over. He's like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I think so." I said, airbag. I had like one of those burns.
Oh, yeah.
From the airbag on my forehead. And he's like, "It looks like you're going to be a little banged up, but you're all right." And he walked away from me, which, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So fast forward to, well, let me go back and say she took off the front of my car and went past the intersection and did like a turn. It wasn't like a spin.
Yeah.
She like turned and drove up into this yard. So she's pointing back towards me behind a stop sign.
Wow.
So fast forward to, they totaled my car. My insurance calls me a couple days later and says, "Yeah, so with the investigation, we looked at the police report and it's going to be deemed a shared fault accident."
How's that even possible?
Well, that's what I said. And on the police report, this lady had told the cops that I was speeding. She had stopped at the stop sign and started to go, and she didn't see me because I was speeding, and I hit her and spun her out.
What?
Keep in mind, I'm stopped in the intersection. And
yeah, and she went well past you.
Yeah.
If
and the damage was to my car.
Yeah.
So the insurance company says, "Yeah, it's going to be a shared fault accident." I said,
"No.
Yeah, that's not going to happen." I said, "You need to look again. I can send you pictures." And this lady's like, "Did you upload the pictures?" I was like, "No one asked me to see the pictures."
Yeah.
For one, I didn't think it was going to be necessary considering she ran a freaking stop sign.
Right.
And took the front of my car off. And she was cited for that. To top it off, no insurance at the time. She had no proof of insurance at the time. And no ops.
Oh, of course.
So no license and no proof of insurance.
Wow.
I think they eventually got her insurance information. Because the car belonged to her wife, who was locked up in Franklin County Jail at the time. So this lady shouldn't have been driving anyways. She had 2 younger kids in the car because she was taking them to the bus, which she was running late for. Which is why she was speeding.
Yep.
But I'm fighting with my insurance now to try and get it all figured out. I've sent those pictures in. It is a mess.
Yeah.
It is a headache. And I tell this story because if anybody's listening and you drive without insurance, you're a dickhead.
Yeah, I agree.
And I hope you fall and skin your knees.
Same with not having a license.
Yeah.
And
exactly. If you shouldn't be driving and you drive, like I'm not gonna get caught. You're a dick.
Well, and
a whole bag of dicks.
Yeah, just dicks everywhere. So
dickified.
So dickified. Well, taking it back to the high school days. Well, if you're pulled over and you don't have a license, they're supposed to impound your car, correct?
Right.
Did they do that for her?
No.
Of course not.
Did not impound her car. Gave her a ticket, and they left the scene. First of all, the cops didn't show up for an hour.
Wow.
For an hour. Because they were on shift change.
You would think they'd have that managed a little better.
Yeah. Police reports all jacked up. And if you know me, I'm a big supporter of law enforcement.
Right.
And she literally did me no favors on this police report. It is so jacked up. She has me traveling down a one-way street. It was a two-way street with 2 lanes. She has it down as a one way with one lane.
Wow.
It's not. The narrative on the police report, she took when she got to the scene, she's like, what happened? I was like, she ran a stop sign and took off the front of my car. She's like, yeah, that's what it looks like. That's the only thing she asked me.
Wow.
The rest of the narrative, so one sentence of the narrative on the police report is me saying that. The rest of this paragraph is her talking to this lady, and this lady saying that I was speeding, and there's cars that's parked on that side of the road. She probably couldn't have seen me coming down that way, and yeah, totally kicked me right in the nuts.
Wow.
So, the lady went to court, pled not guilty. So I'm sure I'm going to be summoned to court, which is fine. I mean,
that sucks.
But yeah, it's been a headache.
Mm-hmm.
And
sounds like it.
And I just want to get on with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So now I got to, get a car.
Which they're outrageous right now.
Yeah,
so
yeah, your interest rate's doubled now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thanks for driving without a license, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. That right there, you should automatically win because she should not have been driving to begin with. It never would have happened had she not been driving.
You're right. And what I think should have happened is the police pulled up on scene. Yep. Oh man, she hit you, ran a stop sign. She doesn't have a license.
Mm-hmm. She's at fault.
They shoot her right there.
Yes.
Shoot her dead.
Yes.
Or they gave the gun to me and let me shoot her.
Even better.
I would have saved everybody.
Yeah. Saved a lot of headaches.
She's got like 5 or 6 past records of no ops.
Wow.
She has 2 MVIs. Yeah, so I won the lottery that morning.
Yeah, you did.
Other than that, how's your week's been going?
Just the usual, man. Freaking just busy working, Yeah. It's all I do now. And it sucks because of my leg, I can't work out right now. So I'm eating the same amount I ate before, but now I'm just getting fat. So
you got a long ways to go to catch up with those fat kids. So I don't want to hear that. We got a senseless crime today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, another senseless crime. It kind of goes hand in hand with somebody who continuously does stupid stuff like drives without a license. When you do the same thing over and over and you just become a nuisance. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we're dealing with.
Okay.
So, buckle up, Evil Mob, as we discuss the Clutter Family Murders. Richard Hickock, a.k.a. Dick Hickock, was born in Kansas City, Kansas on June 6, 1931. His parents were both farm workers and not very wealthy. Richard was a good student in school and wanted to become the breadwinner of the house by eventually going to college.
Nice.
However, because his parents didn't make that kind of money, it would never happen. So Richard started working while still in high school at the age of 16. His first job was with the Santa Fe Railroad Company. He then went on to work as an ambulance driver and a car painter. It's quite the change of venue there.
Yeah.
Richard was a popular kid and a decent athlete in high school. But that all changed when he was in a serious car accident in 1950 that disfigured his face, making it asymmetrical.
Ooh.
Old dick face Richard. He was, however, lucky enough to get him a wife at the age of 19 when he married Carol Bryan, who was just 16 at the time. They would go on to have 3 sons together. He took a job as a mechanic at the Mark Buick Company to provide for his growing family. Richard doesn't just stick to one job, it seems, and that will also be the same with his love life. Richard ended up getting a woman named Margaret Edna pregnant outside of his marriage, and that would be the end of his marriage with Carol Bryan.
Let's say so.
Richard would then marry the mistress Margaret. So again, with the spreading of Richard Hickock seeds, old Hickock seeds, Money was getting tight, and he needed something to help make the ends meet. That's when Richard turned to a life of petty crime.
Of course.
Check fraud and petty theft would eventually get him arrested in January of 1956. In 1958, he was convicted of burglary and sentenced to a maximum of 5 years at the Kansas State Penitentiary. His second wife, Margaret, divorced him during his vacation in prison, and he would meet his new partner in crime, Perry Smith. Perry Smith was born on October 27, 1928 in Huntington, Elko County, Nevada. Perry was one of 3 children to 2 of the most interesting parents we've talked about yet. Perry's parents, Tex John Smith, an Irishman, and Flo Buckskin, a Cherokee, were both rodeo performers.
Oh, okay.
Ye freaking haw. I'm sorry, but Flo Buckskin is funny.
It is. It's good stuff.
Old Flo Buckskin. The family moved to Juneau, Alaska in 1929, where Tex would make a career out of distilling bootleg whiskey. Tex was also an abusive dickhead, add that to his resume, and he would often beat his wife and kids. Flo finally had enough and left him and took the children to live in San Francisco, California.
Nice.
Unfortunately, Flo Buckskin loved the booze a bit too much and would die after choking on her own vomit.
Oh, wow.
Perry was 13 at the time of his mother's passing. The children were then put into a Catholic orphanage. Perry claims that during this time he was physically and emotionally abused there for being a chronic bedwetter.
Ooh.
Perry the Pisser. Perry also spent time in a Salvation Army run orphanage where he claimed that one staff member tried to drown him.
What?
The rough start to life was very hard on the children. So much so that Perry's brother committed suicide at an early age, as did one of his sisters.
Oh, that's terrible.
The other sister actually survived the early turmoil and got married, started a family, and broke off all contact with Perry. Perry joined the Merchant Marines at 16 years old and would go on from that to join the U.S. Army, where he served in the Korean War. Perry would earn a Bronze Star for his service in the war. Although Perry's time in the Army was marred by several incidents of fights between other soldiers and even Korean civilians, he was honorably discharged in 1952. After serving in the Army, Perry got a job painting cars in Tacoma, Washington, where he was living with an Army buddy. So, we have 2 car painters.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's odd.
Yeah, it is.
I just want to touch back one more time on Tex and Flo Buckskin being his parents. The rodeo legends. Perry Smith used his first paycheck from the car painting job and bought himself a motorcycle.
Ooh.
Perry the Pisser was a shitty driver on 2 wheels, and he would end up crashing the motorcycle the same year while driving during bad weather.
Genius.
Perry barely survived the accident. He spent 6 months in the hospital, and when he was finally released, he continued to suffer chronic leg pains. The chronic leg pains led Perry to become addicted to, aspirin.
To aspirin?
To aspirin.
Huh.
And apparently an aspirin addiction can make you do dumb stuff, because in March of 1956, Perry Smith was arrested and sentenced to serve 5 to 12 years in prison for breaking and entering. He was sent to the Kansas State Penitentiary, where his new best friend would be waiting for him. Dick Hickock and Perry Smith met in prison and became good buddies quickly. I guess being locked up for the same stupid stuff can do that. While serving their sentences, they heard of a wealthy farmer in Holcomb, Kansas named Herb Clutter, who spent over $10,000 a year running his farm. Now keep in mind, this is the 50s, so that's a good amount of money.
Oh yeah, definitely is.
The fellow they learned this information from was a man named Floyd Wells, who was a former farmhand for Clutter. Somehow, Perry and Dick mistook the fact that because Herb Clutter spent all that money running his farm, he kept a large amount of cash in the house. That was not the case, however, because Herb was a check writer and would rather write a check than spend cash.
Yeah.
In fact, he wrote a check for $1 once to pay for a haircut.
Interesting. I've never heard of something like that. For $1, you know?
For a haircut.
Yeah.
But Perry and Dick didn't know this. They just assumed he was Mr. Moneybags and carried around all this cash. So the two criminals devised a plan to rob the farmer when they were finally free. Perry Smith was paroled on July 6, 1959, which was a few years early. He waited for Richard Hickock to be released on August 13, 1959. Finally, they were free to travel to the Clutter family farmhouse in Holcomb, Kansas. Herbert Herb Clutter was a 48-year-old farmer who was married to 45-year-old Bonnie Mae Clutter.
Herbert Herb, huh?
Well, I just said they call him Herb.
Oh, okay.
The couple lived on the family farm in Holcomb with their two youngest children, Nancy and Kenyon. Their two oldest children, Eviana and Beverly, had grown up and moved out. Nancy Clutter was a popular and pretty 16-year-old girl. Nancy was a straight-A student who played clarinet in the high school band and was active in the local 4-H club. Kenyon was a 15-year-old quiet, shy young man who did all the things you would expect a farmer's son to enjoy. He hunted, worked on cars, enjoyed woodworking, and was also involved in the local 4-H club. In the early morning hours of November 15th, 1959, Perry Smith and Richard Hickock arrived at the Clutter family home with the intention of finding a safe full of money that they could use to start a new life in Mexico. Smith and Hickock entered the house through an unlocked door while the Clutter family slept. The demonic duo awoke the Clutters. Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon were forced into a second-floor bathroom, and Herb was ordered down to his first-floor office. Smith and Hickock ordered Herb to show them the safe, to which Herb broke the news there was no safe. Things went south from there. After searching the house and realizing Herb wasn't bluffing, the men retrieved Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon from the bathroom. Bonnie's hands were tied in front of her, her mouth was gagged, and she was put into her bed. Next, Nancy was tied up with her hands behind her back, and she was put into her bed, but she wasn't gagged for some reason. Smith and Hickock then forced Kenyon and Herb down into the basement. After failing to tie Kenyon to a pipe in the furnace room, he was then forced into a playroom area in the basement where he was gagged and tied up on a couch. A pillow was placed behind his head to apparently make him comfortable. Imagine that.
Interesting.
Herb was bound and gagged and pushed down onto a mattress lying on the floor in the furnace room.
I don't understand any of this. I mean, they don't have the money, so why? You know, should have just left.
Smith stayed with Herb while Hickock did another search of the house to make sure they didn't miss the safe. A short time later, an angry Dick returned to the basement to give Smith the unfortunate news that there was no safe still. Smith, who was known to fly into fits of rage, did just that and slit Herb Clutter's throat.
Wow.
He then shot him in the head with a shotgun. Smith would later state, quote, "I didn't want to harm the man. I thought he was a very nice gentleman, soft-spoken. I thought so right up to the moment I cut his throat." End quote.
Crazy.
He's a good man.
Yeah.
I wasn't even going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Until I cut his
And then shot
throat.
him in the head. Yeah. Idiot.
After killing Herb, Smith and Hickock entered the playroom and shot 15-year-old Kenyon in the head with a shotgun.
Wow.
I'm going to make you comfortable with this pillow and then shoot you in the head with a shotgun.
Makes sense.
The pair then returned to the second floor of the home and entered Nancy's bedroom. Hickock explained to Perry Smith that he was going to rape Nancy. Strangely enough, Smith told Dick Hickock if he tried to rape her, he would shoot him dead. Perry Smith was not a fan of rape, but apparently murder was okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Nancy was killed with a single gunshot blast to the head. Lastly, the men entered the bedroom where Bonnie was tied up. She was also killed with a single shotgun blast to the head.
Wow.
Smith and Hickock then gathered up all the spent shotgun shells throughout the house. They also took a Zenith portable radio of Kenyon's, a pair of binoculars that belonged to Herb, and cash that totaled to just under $50.
Good old Zenith. Back in the 80s, we had a Zenith TV. Yeah. And I probably would have been 2 years old. My parents had just bought it. And my dumb ass got up under the table that the TV was on and then pushed it up with my legs and knocked it over. It still worked, but it was cracked on the one corner.
Damn it, Rex.
Yeah.
They'll crack the Zenith. So they ended up with $50.
Yeah,
Which basically came out of Herb's wallet. Because when the cops eventually show up, they find his wallet scattered and there's no cash anywhere. So they then fled. The bodies were discovered the next day when the family was missing at church. It was a Sunday. And friends came over to check on them. The Clutters were members of the church, and it was extremely odd for the family to miss. Approximately 1,000 mourners attended the Clutter family funeral.
Wow, that's a lot.
Packing the First Methodist Church in Garden City, Kansas. Yeah, 1,000 mourners, man. It's
a good size.
But you figure there's also 4 dead bodies.
Yeah, true.
Still, 1,000 people's a lot. The murders were investigated by the Kansas Bureau of Inspection, whose investigation initially went cold until Wells, the man who had told Smith and Hickock about the Herb Clutter guy, told the warden at the Kansas State Penitentiary about their plan to rob the Clutters. So old Wells busted on him.
Nice.
Agent Harold Nye of the KBI visited Richard Hickock's parents in Olaf, Kansas. Hickock had previously lived there after the murders and left the shotgun that was used in the massacre in his room. On December 30th, roughly 6 weeks after the murders, Smith and Hickock were arrested in Las Vegas, Nevada, and brought back to Kansas. During the interrogation of the two men, conflicting stories were told. Smith claimed that he killed both Herb and Kenyon, and that Hickock killed Bonnie and Nancy. Hickock, on the other hand, claimed that Smith was the one who killed all 4 family members. Smith later changed his confession and took credit for all of them because he, quote, felt sorry for Dick's mother because she was such a nice woman. He claimed that he did kill them all. You know, whether he did or not is another story. Right. If you think about it, you know, he admits to killing 2 of them, so he knows he's guilty of murder.
Right.
Why would he say, yeah, I killed 2 of them, but he killed 2 of them if he didn't?
Yeah.
But, you know, because both refused to testify in court, no official testimony of who killed the women actually exists. Both men were found guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death.
Nice.
During their time on death row in Lansing, Kansas, Hickock and Smith were interviewed extensively by an author with the name Truman Capote.
Nice name.
Truman Capote.
The Truman Show.
You know Truman Capote, right?
How do I know him?
Truman Capote wrote Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, okay.
The book Breakfast at Tiffany's. You probably never read it.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. It's a classic.
It's a classic.
I never read it either. But I hear it's a classic.
Sure.
They made a movie about it.
True.
But Capote is he's a special fella.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying.
Is that his voice?
Yes. He ends up basically doing some research about the case after reading about it in the media. And goes to visit these guys and to interview them and get to know them or whatever. Truman Capote also became a good friend of Perry Smith during this time, and there are rumors that they may have even had a sexual relationship.
What?
Though no proof of it really exists. On April 14th, 1965, Richard Hickock and Perry Smith were hanged at the Kansas State Prison.
Nice.
Capote was actually there for that. They requested him to be there because they became friends with him.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
It is, yeah.
Hickock was executed first and was pronounced dead at 12:41 a.m. Smith followed shortly afterward and was pronounced dead at 1:19 a.m. In 1966, Truman Capote's book, In Cold Blood, was released and became an instant success. To this day, it is the #2 all-time best-selling true crime book behind Vincent Bugliosi's 1974 book, Helter Skelter.
Wow.
Yeah. But the story doesn't end there. In 2012, authorities in Osprey, Florida, suspect that Hickock and Smith were responsible for the Welker family murders a month after the Clutter family murders.
Wow.
34 days before the Walker murders, Smith and Hickock were actually spotted in Florida around that time in a stolen car at least a dozen times between Tallahassee and Miami. In the Walker family murders on December 19th, 1959, Christine and Cliff Walker and their 2 children were murdered at their home in Osprey, Florida. In December of 2012, Sarasota County investigators announced that they were seeking an order to exhume Smith and Hickock's body from Mount Muncie Cemetery in the hopes that mitochondrial DNA extracted from their bones could be matched to semen found at the Walker home. Smith and Hickock's bodies were exhumed and DNA samples were taken from the remains. In August of 2013, investigators reported that due to the degradation of DNA over the years, a match was uncertain. To this day, Smith and Hickock are still the prime suspects in the Walker case. And that is the story of Perry Smith and Richard Hickock, the men behind the Clutter family murders.
2 psychos that like to paint.
Yeah, like to paint cars.
Yeah.
And like to rob. They like to take things that weren't theirs.
Yeah. Compliment somebody like, oh, he's a real nice person, and slice his throat. Makes sense.
And then shoot him in the head.
Right.
They had decided that they weren't going to leave any witnesses. That's why they killed the family.
Terrible.
I mean, wear a mask, bro.
Right. Yeah.
Idiots.
They are.
And in the words of Truman Capote, they're just, they're just 2 special boys.
Wow.
I don't, it's horrible what they did, but, they had rough lives. They had messed up faces and they had chronic leg pains and aspirin addictions.
Oh, man.
They was getting loaded on the aspirins.
Yeah.
That's why they did what they did.
Never heard of that.
Now everybody's going to look up Truman Capote interviews to hear him talk about that.
They should.
Because it's really like that. He's a tap dancer, too.
Oh, wow.
So what do you got for me, Rex?
All right, if you haven't done so, go to our Facebook page, give us a like. Any comments, questions, or ideas, you can email us at eviltransgression@gmail.com.
Yes, definitely check out our merch.
Yes.
The best way to find that is through our link tree, which you can find. We'll post it up somewhere.
Yep.
Check out some merch. Get you some merch.
Yeah, some merch.
Send us some emails. Write some reviews.
Make fun of Dustin.
Yeah.
You know, that's the favorite part of my day is when somebody, comments about Dustin.
Yeah.
Makes me smile.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading through the older reviews the other day.
Uh-huh.
And they made me smile because it went from Dustin as one of my favorites to somebody saying, I love this show except for Dustin. He's a popular dude. Dustin's been going through it though. He had a loss in the family.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Thoughts and prayers to that, if that's what you're supposed to say.
Right. But today he just overslept.
Yeah. Sucks. He just sucks at life.
Yeah, he does. He loves to suck.
He is a sucker.
Yes.
But, yeah.
All right.
That's really it. So,
Yeah.
I hope everybody enjoyed that little trip down memory lane in Kansas.
Yes.
So, until next time,
See ya.
peace.